this going. Okay, so dude, thank you so much for letting me record this. I really do think that it's a conversation that needs to be heard. We kind of talked before, so you know a little bit of the questions that I'm going to ask. But for those who are going to be viewing this video, I wanted them to give you a little bit of a context. And so if you can give us a little bit of your story growing up as a African American in Temple, Texas.
In Temple, Texas. So first of all, my name is Calee. I am from Temple, Texas, as Rob says. I am 25, and right now I live in Iowa. So I kind of moved away from Texas, and I did so for a good reason. Growing up as a black man, period, but also as a black man in the South, you kind of learn to kind of conform to a system. You learn how to survive. I mean, point blank, period. It's not like you're living life to be happy. You're living life to not die. And that's a very sad reality that Black people face. We get taught how to, we get taught how to conform. We get taught how to not stand up for ourselves because it's less important that we stand up for our rights and more important that we survive to see our family again, that we survive to make it home. We were always taught, like, if the police come up to you, it's yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. If they break the law, if they take, if they trespass against you, they search you on, illegally, if they say things to you that are not right, you don't defend yourself. You let them do whatever it is that they want to do to you, and you let your parents know later. And then later on, you go to the court, or you go to the commanding officer with your parents, and you write a report and hope that something happens. But you never defend yourself against a police officer because the chances of you dying are too high. And your parents would much rather you have been assaulted but alive to speak another day than for you to end up dead because you wanted to assert your rights and wanted to stand up to a police officer. So we live in fear. I mean, quite frankly, that's what we do. I couldn't trust people around me. Growing up, right before I was born, there was a man who was chained to a truck and dragged to death in a city very close to where I lived. He was literally just dragged, and that's how he died. And we hear about that city all the time, Jasper, Texas. Nobody, when you drive through Jasper, Texas, you do not stop in Jasper, Texas. You don't stop near Jasper, Texas. You keep driving until you clear past Jasper, Texas, because we all remember how a man was dragged to death. And so there was a time when I was even running out of gas, and Jasper, Texas was a city I drove through, and I refused. If I ended up running out of gas somewhere far away from Jasper, Texas, I would walk to the gas station as long as I didn't have to stop in Jasper, Texas for some gas, because it's life and death, And like I said, I'd rather be inconvenienced than die. And it's a sick reality for people to have to sit there and deal with, So growing up, I didn't like white people. I tell people that all the time. I hated white people. And the reason why I hated white people is because they were, in my opinion, everything that was wrong with the world. Anything evil that was ever done was done by white people. Of course, that's a little bit exaggerated because, of course, other people have done evil things. But if you look at colonialism, if you look at slavery, if you look at the Holocaust, if you look at all the evil things that have happened in the world, who has done those things? All the things that we know about, who has done those things? You look at how Native Americans were treated, how Native Mexicans were treated, how all of Europe, all of Africa is being treated. Who's doing those things? White people. You look in the hood, who's killing unarmed Black people right now? Who killed George Floyd, a white cop? And so we grew up looking at white people like they are what's wrong with the world. Who are the Ku Klux Klan? White people. Who was calling me the N-word and bullying me in school and seeing what they can do to make me come outside my character every single day? It was white people. And so I hated white people. I really did. I thought they were everything that was wrong with the world. And when you have a hate like that, it's easy for you to not want to let somebody of a different race get near you. It's easy for you to also say white people are bad and everybody else is good. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up thinking that I hated white people now, and I thought that all white people were bad until I got to Sioux City, Iowa, where I live now, and I started meeting some people who genuinely cared about me. And at first I didn't trust them, because I had my bad experiences. And where I'm from, it's life or death. So you really can't afford to let people in. But over time, I realized that these people actually genuinely cared for me. It wasn't just like someone who was trying to take advantage of you or trying to get on your good side so they can get you in a situation where they can kill you. So even then, I still didn't trust them because I had my walls up, I was guarded. And it took for me to have my house robbed back home. And me getting my house robbed was by a black man or by a group of black kids. That for me to realize, you know what? Bad things and people can mistreat you. Bad people can mistreat you from any race, and there can be good people who treat you well from any race. So it isn't so much of a skin problem as much as it is a sin problem. It's about people's hearts and where their hearts are. And so maybe there's some people out there, some white people out there who have good hearts. And help me to realize that, those people who were actually being kind to me and loving me, those white people, they were good. And maybe I had grew up around some bad white people, but not all white people were that way. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it was really hard for me growing up, just for the fact that it was life and death. Every decision, whatever kind of clothes I wore that day, how my posture was, whether I was smiling or whether I was, had a relaxed, what they call the rest and be face, where you kind of frown on accident. You're not mad, you're just frowning. But to somebody else that looks aggressive, makes me look like I'm a thug or I'm a gangster or I'm intimidating to somebody, when if you ever met me, I'm the most fun-loving person in the world, but you have to be extra cautious. You have to be extra cautious about not sending someone the wrong message, because sending somebody the wrong message could end up being your life. And it's not a fun way to live. It's not okay, but it's our existence every single day.
And then one question I kind of had was, how much do you attribute the state of the country or the state of relationship between blacks and whites to normally I think blacks have a fatherless generation because the fathers are in jail because of what's happened. They're just naturally you're into that, and then also true racism, where's kind of the how do you figure out those two factors?
Can you repeat that last part of your question?
So you have the factor of many, I think in Black communities, you've got fatherless generations coming up because of their fathers being in jail, of their fathers working very hard, and all of that. And then you have the factor of racism. How much do you attribute the relationships, the state of Black and white relationships nowadays to those two factors?
I think that people not having fathers in the household right now is perpetuating a problem that was created a long time ago. I don't think that us not having fathers in the household because of any underlying reason, some of the ones you named or some of the ones you haven't named, is the main problem. But I think that it makes it hard to overcome the problem, because what you normally would have is a strong father figure in the household to lead and guide and to be an example to young men of what it means to be a man. Instead, what you have is kids raising kids. Like me, I raised myself in a lot of ways. My father, although I know who my father is, he left and moved to Georgia, and the only time I ever saw him was over the summer, and even then we didn't spend much time together. You know what I'm saying? Because he was always working 2 or 3 jobs, and most of the time we ever spent together, was just seeing him leave and come home. So it makes it very hard for a kid to grow into a man because he doesn't have that man in his life, that presence. So then we have to turn to other influences like the media, and the media is not teaching us the right things at all. They're teaching us to be gangsters and thugs like it's supposed to be cool when it ain't. They're teaching us to believe in toxic masculinity, which what's the word? Exaggerates. That's the word. Exaggerates what it means to be a man. They flash loads of money, they flash jewelry, they flash half-naked models, and every man has a bunch of them in their video and on their arms. So that means if you want to be a real man, you got to have a bunch of money, and you got to have a bunch of jewelry, and you got to have a bunch of women who want you, but you ain't got to want them. You ain't got to be faithful to one woman, or you ain't got to be faithful to any of your women. You just got to have a bunch of them, and that makes you a real man. Or they flash their guns and they flash violence and talk about their violent behavior, like being a man is about being violent. And, that's not the truth at all. The truth is a real man will avoid violence at all costs, but they're not being taught by men. They're being taught by the media, and the media is purposely misfeeding them information. So they're feeding them the wrong information is what I mean. So I think it perpetuates a problem that came from slavery. Slavery broke up the Black family. It wasn't like they were allowed to have a man and a woman and kids together, and the man and woman were able to raise their kids so that we had a strong Black family system. No, they broke up the family intentionally to break the Black men down. They let them have kids, but only for the sake of like breeding the animals. You breed this animal so that you can one day raise them and sell them. You don't allow a Black man and a Black woman to raise their kids and be a family, a strong family unit. You don't let families stick together, because then they'll raise up and they may overthrow you. So you break them up, you break their mind down, you break their self-worth down, and you sell them. You let them know that they're property and they can be sold at any time. And so a man would one day be with his family, the next day be completely across the country, sold to another farm. So that whole idea that a man will never be there in a home started with slavery. And then eventually, the woman had to learn how to live without a man. Then we have women who are, Miss Independent women who don't need no men, but they want a man, and they haven't learned to be a woman for a man, and never learn how to get along with men. So then we have these two alpha figures. You got one hand, you got a man trying to be a man, and on the other hand, you got a woman trying to be independent and don't need a man, and they're both trying to be together. No one wants to work together. They all want to dominate each other. It just doesn't work well because of this broken system. We're trying to overcome what slavery did to us. So the system is being perpetuated by fathers going to jail and by fathers not staying in the picture with their kids. But it didn't begin there. It began with slavery.
Then go ahead and so what is your thoughts on the George Floyd situation?
My thoughts on the George Floyd situation, I pray every night that justice is high. Whatever justice is. I mean, every man, we deserve a day in court. Every man. If you are accused of a crime, the very least you should get is a day in court to prove your innocence. Or defend your innocence. Because in this country, we're innocent until proven guilty. So we defend innocence. We don't prove it. We are already thought to be innocent. It's supposed to be that way, at least. And so George was living his life. People want to say, oh, but he had, it was rumored that he had committed a crime, and that's why the police were trying to stop him or whatever. I don't care about whether he had committed a crime or not. What I care about is the fact that he didn't get his day in court. There's too many people who are dying in the streets and not getting their day in court. It's not a police officer's job to decide whether you live or die. It's not a police officer's job to decide whether you're guilty or innocent. His job is to apprehend you and to get you to your court date, where a judge and a jury of your peers will listen to your case. And then, based on the case that is presented, a jury of your peers will decide whether you're guilty, and the judge will give you a sentence. The police officers who are killing these young Black men or old Black men are completely wrong, no matter what the situation is. If a person doesn't have a gun pointed at you, ready to pull the trigger, then you're completely wrong to kill somebody. If they run away from you, you're completely wrong to kill them. Chase them down, get a taser, do whatever you got to do to submit them. But to kill somebody because they run, or to kill somebody, or to put your knee on somebody's neck for 8.5 minutes. And I hear people saying all the time, "Oh, he was waiting for backup to come." In the picture that we saw 4 police officers holding that man down. What other backup was he waiting on? It's 4 against 1. What other backup were you waiting on? For 8.5 minutes, you press your knee on his neck. I don't care whether he died. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask, why do you think some of the other cops didn't step up? Because I think the one standing right there was, I believe, Latino, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought the same thing, honestly. And I don't think things are going to get better until cops stand up to each other. One reason why cops don't stand up to each other is because it's like it's a, what's the word? It's almost like a fraternity. They belong to each other. And so they have to stand in solidarity with each other, especially in a country that hates cops sometimes. In a country that doesn't have a cop's best interest at heart at times, they have to stand up for each other. And so they almost feel like it's us versus them. And so at the time, whether she felt like he was doing the right thing or not, she just wanted to make sure that she had his back, probably, And I think that mindset needs to change. I think that the mindset should always be justice, All we doing was right. And when it's been 8.5 minutes of someone putting their knee in someone else's neck for no reason, or even if there is a reason, like you look back and you say, hey, maybe, get off his neck. He's saying he can't breathe, switch him around in a different position while we wait on what we're needing. Like putting your knee in somebody's neck is not okay. You need to stand up to somebody if you see something wrong. Like even for myself, there are times when I see people bashing other people. I have a friend and she does not like Donald Trump. And she said he needs to go. I was like, yeah, I believe he needs to go too. She said straight to hell. I was like, whoa. At that point, I had to stand up to my friend and say, look, you may not like him, but don't condemn the man to hell. Like that's a little drastic. You feel me? And so it comes to a time when it don't matter whether somebody's your friend or not. It don't matter whether this is your coworker or not. It don't matter whether this is a fraternity. And you feel like you belong to the fraternity and it's us versus the world or not. When someone does something wrong, you have to stand up to them. And we have a lack of police officers standing up to police officers, which is why police officers allow other police officers to get away with murder. It's just sick.
I just find it interesting. They showed this on the news. They showed actually a clip of during the protest, a Minneapolis police officer using a knee on someone's throat, and then another officer's like, okay, move it off a little bit. Interesting enough, I think neck restraints have been used on suspects more than 200 times, and that's using a arm or a leg to compress someone's leg, have been used more than 200 times, and with at least 44 cases of the suspect losing consciousness as a result, which I found that was interesting um, and I believe that's just Minneapolis that uses that tech, where these facts are coming from, just from the news, um, talking about the protesting. And I find it interesting how many people are peacefully protesting, but not actually part of the looting and all of that. And of course, have to say that you're absolutely against the looting.
I'm absolutely against looting. I'm absolutely against it. Um, I want people to understand though that there is no reasoning with someone who is angry. So when people sit here and say, um, "You guys need to stop looting. You're stupid. You're this. You're that," when someone is angry over a death of their family member, a death of their kin, a death of their friend, the death of someone like them of their same race, and it keeps on happening. It's not like this is the first time someone has died unjustly. This is not like the first time somebody in our country has lost their life to a police officer neither. This is a system. Every month there's somebody new. I've been alive for 25 years and I have not gone a single month without finding out about somebody being abused by the police. So this isn't something that's brand new. So when you build up generations worth of anger and pain, you're going to see rioting. You're going to. What I also want to point out is that it's not all Black people who are rioting. Matter of fact, I'd even point out and say most people who are rioting are not the Black people, especially when we're out here doing peaceful protests. And then other people who will join in, they'll join the protest just to fit in. And then when people get angry, they turn up and they get angrier just to fit in. And then they start doing stuff that we didn't sanction, if you get what I'm saying. Like the community that was protesting peacefully didn't sanction them to go break windows and stuff like that. We didn't sanction that stuff. And then it makes us look bad, like we're the ones doing it, but we're not the ones doing it. Other people are, and they take that. Oh, you're looting and you're rioting, and you're doing all these things. You're a problem. So you make the whole movement look bad because you decide that you want to act crazy just to fit into, the angry mob. So that's not cool, and that's making us all look bad.
And how closely have you paid attention to the news?
I would say somewhat closely.
I'm just thinking there was some clips, I think today and yesterday, of cops kind of showing respect to the protests by taking a knee,
Mm-hmm.
and at least admitting.
That's what we need.
Yeah. Going back to George Floyd, do you think the family's ever going to get a first-degree murder charge?
They are actively trying to disconnect the murder of George from the kneeling of the neck. Most of the time when a police officer kills somebody that I've seen, no charges are ever pursued, or at least they're not successfully executed. Therefore, these people don't go to prison. They don't go to jail for this stuff. They'll take them to jail to get us to stop rioting, but then they'll get off. In Temple, Texas, a young man died in December, got shot by the police for no reason. He had no gun, had nothing on him. He just got shot and died. The police officer was taken in January after killing him in December. And he sat in jail for, January, I guess this is 6 months. So I guess he sat in jail for about 5 months. And they released him to his family a couple of days ago. No charges were pressed against him. He's not facing any jail time. He's not going to have to miss out any more holidays with his family, any birthdays with his family. The young man who died in Temple, Texas, is now dead forever. He won't get to, see any more of his family's accomplishments. He'll always be a picture on a t-shirt from now on But that cop, he gets to walk home free and see his kids again.
Are you talking about?
No, this is in my home city. I can
Yeah,
look up the man's name, but
is in Temple.
it might take some time. You said what? Michael Dean? Oh yeah, I'm talking about Michael Dean. Today, I believe that we as a people have to put more value on the life of everybody. You know, and in order for you to put more value on the value of everybody, you have to go to the people who are least valued and focus on how do you give them more value, right? And I feel like this country has always made it clear that Black people are the least valued people in this country. Everybody else has gone through hardships. Everybody else has had something that has attacked them, but everybody else also has had retribution for it. Everybody else has also had somebody stand up for them. Black people are the only people who will continue to be oppressed and have nobody stand up for them. And what has made my heart happy this time is that this time I'm seeing a white, Black, Hispanic, everybody is coming together to support Black people in their time of need. There are a few people who are saying, oh, they're crybabies and oh, they ought to be quiet and oh, rioting in the streets is wrong. But there's most of the people that I see are saying, hey, we have to do something about this. And they're standing together on the topic. This is what Black people have been needing for a long time. And this isn't the one time you have to do it and the rest of the time be quiet about it. We need to keep on doing this and keep on standing up for the least of men, like Christ said, the least of men, until everybody's voice is heard and everybody's life is valued, until people stop dying in the streets unprovoked, until people get their day in court. That's when we'll finally be at a place where we can say everybody's treated equally, or at least in the justice system.
So for everyone who's going to be listening to this video, as someone who is kind of white, but I'm not a police officer, I'm not in the judicial system, what can I do to help? Or what can I do?
White people have this thing called white privilege. And a lot of people will deny that white privilege exists, but it's a privilege to deny that. Because when a Black person speaks up for himself, people say that he's crying, that he's being a crybaby, he's making things a bigger deal than it is. But for the same reason that white people have this, complex of being superior than other people, they also get listened to when they speak, because they feel like when a white person speaks, they're more, they're more valid, they're more truthful. What they're saying is the truth, compared to when a Black person says something, they think he's just being a crybaby. They think that he just doesn't want to accept the truth. And so the first thing that a white person can do that will help with the cause is open their mouth and speak up. Show that you support. And I don't just mean show that you support so that you can fit into the fan club. No, I mean really communicate how this makes you feel. And if it doesn't make you feel something, don't say it makes you feel something. If you say this really breaks my heart that people are dying, but you don't really mean that, then don't say that. Then just be quiet, But if this really does break your heart, if you really are a part of the movement and you really want to see Black people be treated the way they're supposed to be treated and treated equally, then open your mouth and speak. Because that's when it becomes less of Black people whining and trying to get their way and more of an issue that needs to be addressed. If you notice, nobody ever cares until a white person opens their mouth. No one really cares until it affects white people. And that's in any situation. So your privilege comes in handy when we need you. Your privilege comes in handy when you open your mouth about anything.
Okay, well, thank you very much